Following on from my video 2 weeks ago, which was a day in my life in Japan and designing a character, I want to talk to you about a problem that I have as a creative person that you may identify with as well. In a way, this follows on from my video about how to boost your creativity. Whilst I'm talking, in the background you'll see a time-lapse of the second part of the manga panel that I started last week. By the way, this piece of artwork is now available in Redbubble. I want to talk about creativity and what I feel is the Wizard of Oz syndrome and how I fall prone to it sometimes. I could certainly do with this being explained to me from time to time. Various thinkers have used this phrase with their own interpretations, but this is my own interpretation of this syndrome. At the end of the Wizard of Oz, the intrepid travellers make it to the great wizard, the almighty man who can give them what they desire. They soon make the discovery that the wizard is all that seems, and he is not all that mighty, and behind the curtain is just a man pedalling furiously away to keep his illusion going. This is a photo of my desk. This is where I work most days if I am at home. It's small, it's cramped, and I don't have enough room. The suitcase is my makeshift tripod I use for filming, and it has been used for all my videoing here in Japan, where I've shown you my game cartridges to pieces to the camera. I don't have a tripod yet here. I want to keep my possessions down, as I want to be able to move freely around Japan for my work. I have sketchbooks on the floor because I don't have room, and unless I clear space, I have to kneel on the floor to draw. This is the reality of where I do my work, be it manga, watercolour or pixel art. I also use a cheap Chinese graphics tablet, an 8-year-old MacBook Air, which is my only computer now. Most of my digital artwork at the moment is done on my MacBook's trackpad, because I don't have room for the tablet or even a mouse really. Outside of my window is a busy crossroads, and all day long I hear the bird tweet sound of the pedestrian crossing. This is not the perfect studio you may imagine. It's easy to fall into the trap that your creativity is not where you want it to be because you don't have a particular setup or a piece of equipment or the right space. But you'd be amazed what you could do with what you have if you powered through. The most difficult thing is to overcome that blank canvas. It is such a threatening sight that only becomes ameliorated when you face it head on and start working on your design. I do have to state that I love being in Japan, and it's something that I'm really enjoying, and I would not change it for the world. But don't be in any doubt that my setup is not ideal. My studio does not match the amazing studios you sometimes see on YouTube. And all of my videos may make you feel like you don't have the ideal space as well. But don't believe for a second that this is an ideal space. If you're anything like I used to be, you will sit and stew in your own inability to get started, which only amplifies your frustration. I used to work as a photographer, and I know what goes into videoing and photographing a workspace to give the impression of a certain lifestyle, and is often mostly staged, and it will take many hours of planning and setup. This is the first part of tackling the Wizard of Oz syndrome. I'm revealing just what my workspace and setup is like. I want you to know that actually my studio is bluntly crap. It's uncomfortable, I have no room to work, it is hot sometimes, and it drives me crazy. But gradually I'm making a bit of money through my artwork, and will soon have a new desk which will make things easier. You can make your space work. So just be aware that when you watch my videos, what you are seeing is an illusion of YouTube. There is no secret sauce here, and when you see amazing studio spaces, you may not have the full story. Not all that you see on the internet is what it seems. You can start creating today from the humblest of spaces. In my case, there is nothing about this space that especially contributes to me being creative. I can't decorate it because it may damage the walls. I can't have too much furniture as it would be a pain to move around Japan. And I can't turn off the pedestrian crossing tweeter because I'll get into trouble. What Japan has, however, done for me is given me the freedom, or rather the time to be creative, if I allow myself to be, that is. This leads me on to the second part of my allegory, about creativity and what I call the Wizard of Oz syndrome. And that is the feeling that you lack something, or that the gift you desire is something you don't currently possess. Dorothy, the Scarecrow, Tin Man and the Lion all went off to see the Wizard of Oz to be granted something that they felt they did not already possess, namely belonging, a brain, a heart, and courage. Each of the main characters felt they did not quite fit in life, and in the end, when the wizard's secret is revealed, he grants them three things: awareness, permission, and then finally awareness again. All creative people, if they have any self-awareness at all, will at some time feel inadequate, lacking, and not good enough for all the years that they've worked at their art form for. I know I do sometimes, as I get frustrated by my mistakes or struggles in articulating something like a hand position or an expression. And the internet, at the same time, blesses and curses us with such saturated images and expressions from other creators that we can only look at and sometimes feel inadequacy against these other creatives rather than being inspired. Ultimately, we feel something is missing in ourselves and we shy away from creating for the fear of revealing only too physically what we feel are our inadequacies. But the thing is, you already have that gift. You honestly do. You just need the awareness to realise it is already within your grasp. You need to realise you have it and to treasure it and to keep working on what you already have to allow it to blossom. Through working on your art, you will become frustrated with your mistakes and notice where your work is not what you expected, with or without the comparison to others. And in your next attempt, you'll both consciously and subconsciously work on many of those changes into your artwork. And if you keep on repeating this cycle, your gift is going to blossom. The next wish granted by the wizard is permission. Sometimes we don't give ourselves the permission to be creative. We sometimes shield ourselves from the fear of inadequacy while making excuses for why we can't do something. But we need to be kinder to ourselves and give ourselves permission, namely the time and space to create, the time and space to make mistakes, the time and space to discover new things. I denied myself this ability for almost 15 years before deciding to quit everything about the safe but unsatisfactory life that I led, that was going nowhere before. Now I have given myself the permission by coming to Japan to give myself the time to be creative, the time to make mistakes, the time to discover new things about my artwork. And finally, the last wish granted was awareness again by the wizard. The awareness that you are in control of your destiny ultimately. And you have a choice right now. You either do it or you don't. You need to get a hold of your fear and rediscover that child in you that at the age of 5 who did not hesitate to start drawing what they did in their summer holidays. That there was no fear, only excitement at being given permission to create. Just start. Do something. Don't pressure yourself too much. Just see where it takes you. The progress from day to day may not seem magical, but from month to month it will be visible, and from year to year it will be night and day. Sometimes it's hard to find time though, isn't it? You may have a family to support, or a loved one to look after, or a friend who is in need of support right now, which takes your time. That is understandable. But don't put those things on the things to feel bad about list. Celebrate your priorities and your empathy. Don't see them as barriers, just part of what makes us richer and caring as a loving person. Your creativity will blossom with your open heart when you realise that you chose to support your family and look after those loved ones or your friends. These aren't barriers, and don't hold your desires in deep slumber. Be honest when you need to have some time to create, and maybe have 30 minutes to yourself. Every day I try to get up and create a small sketch of 2 well-known characters. I do this because I know them very well, and what I learn from them in 30 minutes of sketching I can apply to my own new characters as well. In summary, the Wizard of Oz said to the travellers, they already had everything that they needed, and so do you. And frankly, I need to allow myself to believe this as well. Goodness knows when I get in a funk, I need to listen to this advice. So there it is. This is how my character ended up last week. This work, which I called December 1994, which is based on myself and that time in my life, is now available on Redbubble. If I'm honest, I've suffered badly from the Wizard of Oz syndrome, as I call it. A feeling of how could someone like me ever aspire to the immaculate, pristine studio crafted items I saw time and time again on YouTube. And yet, even though I knew it wasn't all as it seemed, it still affected me. Don't let it affect you. My dream studio is the one where I can get up early and drink a hot cup of coffee and feel the cool breeze coming through the window and the sun rising above the horizon, and a chair and a flat space to work. Maybe some music. That's all. That's my perfect studio. And don't feel you don't have your gift already. You do. Give yourself time and space to nurture it. And let it grow without undue pressure. And remember, you're doing this because you enjoy it ultimately. I am learning this lesson all the time. And give yourself permission to have the time to do it. But remember, if there are family or familiar constraints, they're not barriers. Just you being a good person. Don't hide your desires though. You must give yourself the permission to have 30 minutes to be by yourself and create. And finally, you are in control. I have felt very powerless at times in my life. Like, how can I quit a job? How will the mortgage get paid? How will the bills get paid? How will my family look after itself? But I can tell you this, you can make it work. If I was to sum up the things that I've learned more practically about my own creativity when I was working on this manga panel, they were: number 1, take greater care when inking. Give the ink some time to dry. Number 2, use the ruler. Don't freehand objects that have straight edges like books. But that's my own personal taste. It's not a right or wrong, it's just my own taste. Number 3, draw more perspective marks. Don't guess. And finally, number 4, buy a bigger desk. If I hadn't sat down and created, I would not have learnt these lessons. At the start of the year, I spoke from the heart on a stream of mine about the unhappiness surrounding doing a job that essentially required hours of creative thought that was always eventually consigned to the virtual dustbin. Websites get old and need to be replaced, and I felt acutely that my creativity, the only output that I had in my life, was being made and then binned. For me, being creative is being able to hold in my hand something that I created and said that I did that. It's important for me to have physical manifestations of what I create in life. For me, this is also about the creative process about being enjoyable. And the more that I break these barriers down, and the more that you break your barriers down, the more that you and I will enjoy the process of being creative. You will get rid of the fear and only be excited at the potential that is within your own hands. I need to listen to my own advice sometimes because I get in a funk. So if I do, tell me to watch my own video because I know that this is right and I hope it helps you. I guess that all remains for me to say. See you soon. Peace. So it's come to that part of the video where I mention that I'm on Patreon. From as little as $2 a month, you can get early access to content, exclusive artwork through the post, your name mentioned on videos, as well as tips that I don't publish to the public. You can find a link in the video description below. Your subscription to my channel will also help me ensure that I can bring the latest content here from Japan.